Hello to my Hormone Detox tribe. I am on today live with Dr. Tom O'Brien. He is the author of the new book, You Can Fix Your Brain, right here, that just released, 9 days ago, you said, Dr. Tom?
Yes.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'm excited to dig in the connection between the brain and autoimmunity and toxicity. It's going to be a great conversation. Just wanted to make a few announcements first to my community here. So right now we're launching the Detox Your Hormones program, which is a 5-week live program, and registration closes this Saturday. This is an awesome opportunity to get your hands dirty with some of these same topics we'll be covering today, learning about environmental toxins around your home, how to clear them out of your body, and ultimately how to improve your health through these means, right? For bloating, brain fog, which I'm sure we'll cover today, trouble losing weight, trouble remembering things. So check that out. I'll share the link is at bridgetdanner.com. I'll share it again on this page. But would love to have you join us. It's a very affordable program and you have live access to me. So,
excuse me, I'm going to say something about that if I may. It's critically important, first, that our body makes adequate amounts of hormones. That's critically important. And the second thing that's critically important is that our bodies can use those hormones. You know, for example, so many women that have problems with thyroid function, when they do a blood test, their thyroid hormone levels are normal, but they have the symptoms of sluggish thyroid, cold hands and feet. They wear socks to bed sometimes, hard to get up in the morning, wish you had 20 more minutes in bed, hit the snooze 2 or 3 times or more, can't lose at last 5 to 10 pounds, even if you don't eat for a few days. Just feeling sluggish, all thyroid symptoms, but you do a blood test and your thyroid hormone levels are normal. Well, your bloodstream is just the highway. You know, it's just a highway and so we're measuring what's on the highway. That's not measuring what's in your cells and how are your cells functioning. And one of the things that is so commonly associated with thyroid dysfunction, as an example about hormones, is that there are 3 chemicals that bind onto thyroid receptor sites, and they just sit in the receptor. Now, what's a receptor site? It's like a catcher's mitt, and the pitcher throws the ball to the catcher, right? And if the pitcher throws a fastball to the catcher, but there's a bunch of baseballs already in the catcher's glove, the fastball just bounces out. So thyroid hormone going by in the bloodstream tries to come into a thyroid receptor site, but it can't if these chemicals are sitting in there blocking the receptor site. And what are the chemicals? Chlorine, fluoride, and bromide. Mrs. Patient, if you're in an elevator in a hotel and the elevator doors open, can you tell that the swimming pool's on that floor right away? Oh, yeah. You're smelling chlorine, but everyone can't smell it. Your body is sensitive to chlorine. And that may be a strong contributing factor to the hormone problems that you're having, even though your body's making adequate amounts of hormone. That's why when you start a detox your hormones concept, you're learning about these kinds of things and how to help your hormones work better.
I love that example. I actually mentioned those 3 things in our webinar the other day, but I love the example, the catcher's mitt, so people understand that. And, you know, I love the work you're doing, Dr. Tom. It's very progressive, and I appreciate that because I think this concept about toxins interfering with your hormones is still not very well understood.
Oh, so, well, let's dial that one down to begin with. Healthcare will never be like it was 10 years ago. It will never go back. And the symptoms that somebody came in with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you could treat them a particular way. They responded very well. They don't respond anymore to those protocols as well. And why? Wow. I'm going to tell you 2 studies that set the stage for all of this. This is critically important. The first study is the World Wildlife Fund, and they looked between 1970 and 2011, 41 years, and they said in 41 years, there has been on average a 58% reduction in populations of all vertebrate species on the planet, everything with a spine, insects, birds, fish, mammals. The average is 58% reduction in population of all of them. For the birds, it was 35%. For mammals living near fresh water, it was 78%. 78% of the beavers are gone. The porcupines, they're gone. In 41 years, 78% of them are gone. Why? They're drinking the water.
Oh, wow.
And if
So
you
this
were
isn't
drinking the water,
extinction. This is just overall population reduction. Is that right? Am I understanding right? Okay, go ahead.
Right. They're not at extinction levels yet. But if you were drinking the water coming out of the streams, you'd get cancer quicker. You'd be unable to reproduce, just like the animals. Second study. A meta-analysis, that means it looks at a number of studies on one subject, 180 studies on sperm count in healthy men, not infertile men, healthy men. So your husband, healthy men. And this was between 1974 and 2011, 37 years. There's been a 59% reduction in sperm count in healthy men in 37 years. Now, that doesn't mean anything to anyone until you learn scientists worry about extinction of a species at 72%.
Oh, wow.
And we've dropped 59% in 37 years. What do you think is going to happen in the next 20 years? So when you look at these kinds of statistics and you take a step back and just get the big picture and not be overwhelmed by the numbers, but just the big picture is the world is so toxic now, it's affecting how we function. These chemicals that we're going to talk about are endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs. Endocrine disrupting they disrupt how your hormones work. So it's critically important to understand how to help your hormones work better, how to detox so that your hormones can work better. I'll tell you one more study, and then we'll begin.
No, I love it.
In Norway, I think it was Norway, the government did a commission. It was a 6-month commission, turned out to be almost 3 years, 2.5 years, because there was so much public upset about it. Should we recommend that women not breastfeed a first baby? That was the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Why would you not breastfeed your first baby? People in Norway eat a lot of fish. The fish come from the fjords. The fjords are narrow and deep and long. Farmers have been using insecticides and pesticides for 40 years now. And the PCBs, the endocrine disrupting chemicals in insecticides and pesticides, run off with the rainwater into the fjords. The fish are full of PCBs. Now, there's no study that says eating a fish that's got this measured amount of PCBs in it is going to cause a problem for a human. There's no studies on that. But it's the accumulative effect of 25, 30 years of eating fish. And if your body doesn't detox properly to break down these toxic chemicals that humans have not been exposed to in previous generations ever, if your body can't break these chemicals down, they accumulate. And where do they accumulate? They accumulate in the hormone-loving cells. So for men, that's the testes, low sperm counts. For women, it's the breasts, the ovaries, the uterus, and the brain. So now you have a woman, 25, 30 years old, got married, gets pregnant, has a healthy pregnancy, really studying to make sure everything's great for the pregnancy in preparation for the baby. Now she has a healthy delivery. And just before delivery, the brain sends a message down to the breast, okay, mammary cells, let's start making some milk here. Let's start lactating because you're about to feed this baby that's coming out. And how do your breasts make milk? It's the fat cells that have been storing these endocrine disrupting chemicals for 25 to 30 years. Now you make milk and mom breastfeeds the baby feeling really fulfilled and great and thankful, a healthy baby and all of that. But the breast milk is loaded with these toxic chemicals that are neural disruptive. They're neurotoxins. They affect how the baby's brain develops. PCBs directly affect how your baby's brain develops. Why do you think autism is going through the roof now? You know, when I came out in practice, it was 1 in 10,000. Now by 2026, they tell us it'll be 1 in 2 children will be
Yeah.
on autism spectrum.
Crazy. It's completely crazy.
This is why. It's the toxins. It's the Journal of Pediatrics tells us that it's 250 pounds of toxic chemicals per person per day that are being dumped in the U.S. Between
How
you
many
and
pounds?
me, 250
Wow.
per person per day. So for you and me, Bridget, that's 500 pounds per day. If we include our spouses, that's 1,000 pounds a day for 4 people. That's 20 50-pound bags every single day of this stuff that's being dumped into the environment, and it gets in our bodies. So the commission in Norway came back and they said, no, it's more important to breastfeed than not breastfeed a first baby. Well, I personally agree with that, but I take it a step further, and that is every woman of childbearing age needs to detox her breasts before she gets pregnant, before.
Absolutely.
And it takes about 6 months. And you do this, and then you can rest assured your baby's going to have a fighting chance to have a good functioning brain.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. I really appreciate you looking at the global aspect of this. It's happening worldwide. It's happening to animals. I think that I worked in the fertility field exclusively for a few years, and I think that, anybody when they get sick, they're like, we tend to say, why did this happen to me? Like it's a very individual circumstance,
Right.
But it's a pretty global circumstance. However, we will get in today, to actually reversing symptoms, because I think often what can motivate people is, sick and tired of being sick and tired. They don't want this anymore. And then when we make changes in our own lives, when we get awake to these toxins, we are making different decisions out in the world as well, right?
Absolutely right. And unfortunately, the getting sick and tired of being sick and tired is happening to younger and younger generations.
It's true.
It used to be people after the age of 50 would start complaining about this kind of stuff. Now it's people after the age of 20 are complaining about this kind of stuff. And you guys don't know it because you've never experienced anything else. And so this is kind of, my friends and I, we feel like that, And you just kind of put up with it and you try a little something to make it. No, you're supposed to be vital and in the prime of your life and ready to reproduce and continue the species, and just be full of zest in your 20s and 30s and 40s, and not be saying, I walk into a room and I can't forget why I walked into the room. That's not supposed to happen. Well, I'm getting older, and well, how old are you? I'm 34. I don't think so.
34 is still, you could still probably have 10 more kids in that age, technically. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into the book a bit. Thank you so much for that. That was great. I love your passion. So just as a little background, you may know Dr. Tom from the Gluten Summit, from his book, The Autoimmune Fix, and you had a docu-series. What was that called? Autoimmune?
We did. It was called Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you.
Okay. So I guess my first question is, why the brain? Why are we going there next?
Yeah. Thanks. It's a really good question. Everyone knows someone that had a heart attack. They survived. They changed their diet. They started exercising. They're doing great now. Most of us know someone diagnosed with cancer that's gone through some protocols, either the traditional or the alternative, and the cancer's in remission, it's gone, and they're doing great now. No one knows anyone diagnosed with a brain deterioration disease that's doing great.
You know what? You're right. I never thought about that.
And it scares the hell out of us.
It does.
Because we think it's permanent. No, it's not. You can fix your brain. But the first step in fixing your brain is recognizing what's happening. So 1986, my ex and I were driving back from Michigan to Chicago. We lived in Chicago. And it was a August day, coming back from vacation, a 90-90 day. 90-degree temperature, 90% humidity. Hot day. So we're driving back on the highway, had a 1986 Chrysler minivan, kids in the back seat, doing 70 down the highway, air conditioning on, listening to some music, just enjoying the day, enjoying the drive. And I'm watching the instrument panel had gauges. So it had a temperature gauge. There's two ways to measure the temperature in the engine of a car. One method is that the hot light comes on, that big red light, hot, hot, hot. And you know you have to pull over right away or this engine's going to blow up. In other cars, you have a temperature gauge. And the needle starts climbing towards the red zone, which gives you a window of opportunity to see, oh, my engine's getting hotter, before you are stuck and have to pull over. So I noticed that the temperature gauge was starting to climb. And I watched it for about 15 minutes, and then it kept climbing, and then it got up right at the edge of the red zone. I said, oh, no. And my ex said, why, what's wrong? I said, oh, the engine's overheating. Oh, my God. No, it's okay. It's okay. So I took preventive action. What does that mean? I slowed down to 55, turned off the air conditioning to take the load off the engine, rolled down the windows, listened to the kids complain of how hot it was, but we made it home okay. We didn't get stuck in Gary, Indiana. We took preventive action. And my goal in this book is that the readers begin understanding how to read the temperature gauges of your body. So you can identify what's cooking inside of you before the hot light comes on and you get a diagnosis of depression or anxiety or attention deficit or autism or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, that you can see what's cooking beforehand. And then you take preventive action. So the book is all about what are the biomarkers, the temperature gauges to look for that most of your doctors don't know about. But here's the studies and here's the information about it. What are the biomarkers? If they come back positive, what do you do to reverse it? How long is it going to take? And then you recheck to see if the biomarker has come back down. For example, there are many studies now that show if you are losing your sense of smell, the geek term for it is hyposmia. It's a good Scrabble word. Hyposmia, hyposmia. It means you're losing your sense of smell. Now, why is that important? Because the nerves of smell go from the nose right back to the brain, right into the area above that, and it rides right above the memory center. Why is that important? Because our ancient ancestors, if they walked into a cave to sleep for the night, if they smelled saber-toothed tiger, they had to get out of there really quick. So they had to have a memory of what that smell was. It's a survival mechanism. So our smell nerves go right to the memory center. It's very cool when you understand the physiology and why it's that way. It's very cool. So there are a number of studies now that show if you have hyposmia, if you're losing your sense of smell, if you're over 70, your risk of dying in the next 5 years is much, much higher than someone of the same age that has not lost or losing their sense of smell. And dying from what? From anything. From heart attacks, from Alzheimer's, from Parkinson's, it doesn't matter. But your mortality rate is much higher.
Wow.
So, and if you're losing your sense of smell earlier, your brain deterioration is accelerating much faster than it should be for your age.
Oh, wow.
And so when you learn that, and then we say, go to www.thedr.com, that's my website, thedoctor.com/smell, and order the smell test. So it's $50 and you get this test, and it's a scratch and sniff. You know, it's like a lottery card. You take a coin and you're scratching the coin. So you scratch and, oh, that smells like cinnamon. Oh yeah, it is cinnamon, great. And you scratch and, oh, that smells like strawberry. Oh, good. And there's 12 different scents on that test. And the studies have shown that 12 scent test, 12 different scents test, is 96% equivalent to the really expensive research equipment that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in university settings. just this little scratch and snip is really accurate to identify if you have hyposmia. And if you get 9 or less of the 12 correct, you got hyposmia.
Oh, okay.
So then the book says, all right, you found out you got hyposmia. Now what? Now you do the test to see, do I have inflammation in my brain? What kind of inflammation do I have in my brain? And when you do these simple blood tests that look for inflammation in the brain and you go to your doctor and say, hey, I need to have this test done. And you download from my site or from the book, and here's the information on the test. I need this test. Why? Well, because I have this lack of smell. Oh, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Then you know you're talking to the wrong guy. That guy just doesn't know. He hasn't read those studies. He may be really good at what he or she knows, but this ain't it, right? And so you read this, and I put all the studies in there for everything that we talk about, and you read this, and then you go to my site, and you get more information on it, and then you bring a functional medicine practitioner onto your team, or you use my team, and you work with my team if you want to, by Skype or by Zoom. You can do it if you want, but I prefer you go to your doctor to get these results so that your doctor learns about this and then does it with all of his clients where it's appropriate to do it in the future, right?
True.
But you're identifying the temperature gauges, and you really want to find them. I'll give you an example. I don't see patients very often anymore. I don't have the time, but people would come to me and they'd say, I've been to Mayo Clinic and they don't know what's wrong. And I'd say, that's great. That's really great. And I do it like that. I'm half Italian and all, but that's really great. So they laugh just like you laugh, a little awkwardly, but they've heard I'm a nutcase. And so now I'm demonstrating. That means that you don't have a disease. Because if you had a disease, Mayo Clinic would find it.
Gotcha.
You've got dysfunction that's not yet a disease. So let's see what's not functioning right. So the tests we're going to do are different kinds of tests. They're functional tests. And then when you do that, when you do functional tests, the next visit they come back, and everybody's always a little nervous to get test results and, am I okay? So they come in and they sit down and I look at their test results and I say, good news, you're a mess. You're a mess. Look at all this stuff that's wrong. This is great. And they kind of look at me and they laugh a little bit. This is great because all of this is correctable.
Yeah.
If we couldn't find what's wrong, we wouldn't know what to do to get you feeling great again. Now we know what to do.
Yeah.
And here's what you do. And this will take this number of months. And this will take this amount of time. This will take this. And we'll recheck this in 6 months. And we'll recheck this one in a year. And you should be fine. And just time after time after time, you see these people getting well. And
yeah, that's
really
great.
happy. So you want to find these temperature gauges that are not yet in the hot zone with a diagnosis of a disease. You want to find these.
True. And I always tell people, like, if you're sick and and no one's found anything, you just haven't checked in the right place yet, which is exactly what you're describing. I love it.
Right.
Okay, I want to tell you two things. One, just yesterday, Dr. Tom, I taught an essential oils class and someone had almost no sense of smell.
Yeah.
So I'm going to forward this to her. This is really exciting. And then second, I want to talk about, I believe it's chapter 5. Is that the chapter with all the tests that people can potentially run? Or maybe you don't remember.
I'm sorry.
Is it
you kind of got frozen.
Oh, sorry. Is it chapter 5 that has all these tests, the tests that they can run?
There are a number of tests in chapter 5. I think there's some tests in other areas also.
Okay. Yeah, and some of them I was familiar with and some of them I was not. So yeah, I'm familiar with the mold test you mentioned and some of the chemical testing, but there's quite a bit on antibody testing as well, right? Can you tell us about that and how that relates to this brain conversation?
Oh, you bet. First, let me comment on the mold. We know that there are 3 main types of Alzheimer's. And clinically, the most common type appears to be inhalation Alzheimer's. It's what you're breathing. See, that's why the smell test is so important, because what you're breathing is going right through your nose, directly up to your brain, or through your lungs into your bloodstream up to your brain. But the nerve fibers from scent go right back there quickly. Excuse me. And inhalation Alzheimer's is about 60 to 65% of Alzheimer's cases are inhalation. It's what they've been breathing that is the fuel throwing gasoline on the fire of their brain, causing the inflammation, causing the accumulating damage. Well, Mrs. Patient, if you go on vacation for a week or a couple of weeks, when you come home, do you have to open the windows to air the house out? Oh, yeah. You've got mold and you're breathing mold. Have your house checked for mold. Well, no, my house is fine. I understand you're used to it. You don't think it's a problem. Have your house checked for mold, because that may be what's causing the inflammation that's killing off your brain cells, giving you the symptoms you're having. Because it's the most common trigger to Alzheimer's is
so
inhalation.
You're saying, okay, so of the, and this you might not have an answer for this, but there's of this inhalation type, do you have any sense of the breakdown of, is it sometimes chemicals, I would imagine?
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, in the mid-1990s, every dog that they checked in Mexico City when it died and they did autopsy, every dog had Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
Every dog. And in the mid-2000s, the urine test came out and the blood test came out, and the papers started being published around 2009, 2010. Every child they check in Mexico City has markers of brain inflammation and the pathways that produce Alzheimer's. Every single child. Because the air pollution is so bad, so bad. And if you want to know how bad the air pollution is where you live, this is what you do. You go to a really nice car wash, you know, one where the guys have the water bottle on their hip and they go, right? They squirt your windshield and all, and they wipe it down and do all that. Drive home, leave the car out in front of your house, set your alarm for 4 hours, go outside and run your hand across the windshield. That stuff is what you're breathing all day, every day. That particulate matter. Oh, my air is fine here. I don't smell anything. It doesn't matter what you smell. It matters what gets inside your body. And so that particulate matter, and most cities, you know, are higher now in particulate matter. And some areas, like, for example, Missoula, Montana, and I love Missoula, but in the wintertime, because there's mountains all the way around, there's an inversion. And the air becomes toxic there because the air doesn't move through the way it does in the summertime. And so people there are breathing a lot of toxic air. And so that's the inhalation concept.
Okay. So lots of the potential sources.
Oh, there are a lot. There are a lot.
Okay.
Also, you know, and you'll see in the book, the studies that show you have to keep the toilet seat down all the time, because if it's open, the chemicals in the water that are sitting exposed outgas into the air.
Oh, wow. I did not know that one. I think you can get parasite little eggs airborne that way too. I mean,
That's
maybe not
correct.
sitting there, but
That's
from
correct.
the toilet.
And,
okay.
and the most toxic air in the house, I've only read 2 studies on this, and they say it's the most toxic, but it's going to be toxic anyway, whether it's the most one or not, is running your dishwasher.
Huh.
That it's not, the seal is not airtight. The seal is watertight, but not airtight. What does that mean? It means the toxic chemicals in the dishwashing soap that you put in there with the hot water and the splashing around, those chemicals come out into the air and you're breathing those chemicals. You're also breathing the formaldehyde that's in the press board of the kitchen cabinets if they're not solid wood. And you're breathing the flame retardant chemicals in your sheets and blankets and comforters on your bed. And you're breathing the Scotch Guard on your sofa and your chairs. And it's the accumulation of all these toxic chemicals that, and you're breathing them all. So your neural network from the nose starts decaying because of the inflammation. You don't feel this stuff until you say, you know, I walk into rooms once in a while and I don't remember why I walked in the room. So it's the effects that you're seeing down the road is what catches people.
Ah, okay. That's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about the inhalation of indoor and outdoor air causing that deterioration.
And that's perfect, Bridget, because we want people to be thinking about this. My goal is a paradigm shift for everyone, that the way we took care of ourselves 10 years ago is not what we can do any longer. We have to be thinking about how to protect ourselves and protect our families. And you have to be thinking about that all the time. For example, when you pump gas, when you fill your gas tank, can you sometimes smell the gas?
Oh, yeah.
You're smelling benzene. It's a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
I
feel so bad for the attendants, you know?
Yeah. It goes right through the lungs, into the bloodstream, straight up to your brain, and it's a neurotoxin causing inflammation in your brain. You're standing downwind. So what do? Walk around the other side of the hose. Now you're standing upwind. And you don't smell it. Yeah. But without the paradigm shift, you don't think about these kinds of things. So the only way I know to do this, the only way that captures your generation, that captures the millennials who want it now. I want everything now. You aren't going to get this now. So the only way I know how to do this is to scare the hell out of them by reading the studies and then say, here's how you negate this and protect yourself and your family and protect your future babies and protect your children, because we're wiping out the planet.
Yeah, it's really scary.
You aren't going to find a better form of coenzyme Q10 that's going to fix this, or a better form of vitamin C. Well, what food can I take, or what pill can I take that's going to get rid of this problem? There is none. I've been doing this for 35 years, and it's really easy to say, well, buy this product or buy that product, and of course those things help. Of course they help, but they're not fixing the problem. And we have to have a paradigm shift so that we're looking through a different lens and we think differently.
I love it. Yeah, I feel like this is a sales page for my course, because my course is, really based on avoidance. But I had to include body detox because I wasn't sure anyone would purchase it if it were just about detoxing your home. I just don't, like you said, doesn't give you an immediate result. But I try to bank on, and this too, people who are already eating healthy, they really want this. They're trying, but they're just missing a big piece about toxins. Even if they know a little bit, like, oh, don't drink out of a plastic water bottle, that's great. But it's a complicated subject. And just chipping away with these little bits of information, moving away from the gas pump, it can be just lots of little things. Right. Yeah, really impactful.
I would just rephrase something there. I would say it's not a complicated subject. It's just it's a huge topic, but it's not complicated to understand. So people.
Probably right. Yeah.
People would get this. It's, oh, that makes sense. You can't breathe that stuff, because it causes all these problems inside your body. Even though you don't get sick when you're smelling gas, it's a neuroinflammatory compound. You get inflammation on your brain when it happens, every time it happens.
Yeah. So I wonder, Dr. Tom, if you could talk a little bit about the autoimmune piece of this more.
Sure. Yeah, you bet. So back to the antibodies.
Yeah.
It's really important because the tests, a lot of the tests work with antibodies. Mrs. Patient, your immune system is the armed forces in your body. It's there to protect you. There's an Army, an Air Force, a Marines, a Coast Guard, a Navy, IGA, IGG, IGE, IGM. They're all different branches of the armed forces there to protect you. So when your armed forces get called up into action, there's something wrong. There's an invader. So when you want to monitor what's your body doing right now, how is your body doing overall? It's nice to check your nutrient levels, your vitamin levels, to make sure that you're getting enough of the raw materials you need. That's important, but that doesn't tell you where the threat is. When you look at your immune system, the activity of your immune system, what's my body fighting right now? And you find out, for example, that your body is fighting wheat. That means you can't eat wheat, no matter what. Well, I like my wheat. Well, I like, there's things I like too that I just can't, you just can't do, right? Right? But when you use your immune system as the temperature gauges of what's going on in your body, it's a revelation. I was, holy cow, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. And when you take action to support your immune system, within a couple of weeks, usually, you just start feeling so much better. I'll give you the example of, I'll stay with wheat for the moment. So you've got elevated antibodies to wheat. Your immune system is fighting wheat.
That's anti-gliadin. Is that what that's called?
Well, that's a really good.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take you off.
No, it's good. That's really good because you've done some homework. Every lab in the country, when they check for a wheat sensitivity, they check anti-gliadin antibodies. However, there's over 62 different peptides of poorly digested wheat. Anti-gliadin is the most important one, but it's only one. And about 50% of celiacs will have that one elevated, but the rest of the people don't.
Okay.
They've got other peptides elevated. So if you're only checking that peptide, if it comes back positive, you got a problem. But if it comes back negative, it doesn't mean you don't have a problem. What it means is that you don't have a problem with anti-gliadin. You may have a problem with any of the other 62, right? So there are tests that are much more comprehensive than that. So the test is called the Wheat Zoomer.
Oh, that's a fun name.
Yeah. And when you do the Wheat Zoomer, and you see that you've got a problem with wheat, and you get wheat out of your diet, all of a sudden, your migraines go away. Or as what happened with my wife, for 7 years, she had abnormal pap smears every year. 7 years. And she found out her grandmother died of cervical cancer. And so it really scared her. So she started doing some research, and she found out that she had a sensitivity to wheat. When she took wheat out of her diet, and she had pap smears every 6 months at that point in her life, when she took wheat out of her diet, within the next pap smear, within 6 months, it was normal. For the first time in 7 years, it was normal. And that's all she did. She didn't do anything differently. She just took wheat out of her diet. So when you have a sensitivity to a food, and I'll use wheat as the example because there's over 20,000 studies on wheat. When you have a sensitivity to wheat, it may manifest in your reproductive system, or it may manifest in your thyroid, or it may manifest in your brain. It just depends on where your genetic weak link is as to where it's going to manifest. Mrs. Patient, you pull at a chain. The chain always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your genetic weak link is. So if you eat wheat and you have a sensitivity to wheat, you're pulling on the chain. And if the weak link is your kidneys, you're going to have kidney problems, kidney infections, bladder infections. If the weak link is your joints, you're going to be stiff in the morning when you get up, and you have to get in the shower, a hot shower. And after a while, you can move around better. But your joints, they ache every once in a while. You got to take some Advil or some Tylenol or something. It could easily be because of a sensitivity to wheat. That may be the trigger. It just depends on where your weak link is as to where it'll manifest. But the main problem, and we'll use wheat as the example, but you can use the same example with viruses and with bacteria, is that when your immune system makes antibodies to wheat, the way that works, antibodies are like special forces. They've got high-powered rifles, and they're going through the bloodstream looking for wheat. That's all they do, the wheat antibodies. They're just looking for wheat, nothing else. And your bloodstream's just a highway, and there's no lanes of traffic on the highway. It's just a highway. Everything's bouncing into each other like bumper cars, and bouncing, boom, boom, boom. And they're trying to fire their chemical bullet when they find wheat to destroy the wheat. The way they identify the wheat molecule is that there's a protein signature in wheat that they've been primed to look for and destroy that substance. And that protein signature happens to be very similar to the protein signature of the inside of the thyroid facing the bloodstream. So when these antibodies are going past the thyroid, they may look over, oh, look, there's a signature, boom. And they fire their chemical bullet at the thyroid, and you damage a thyroid cell. Now your immune system has to make antibodies to thyroid to get rid of the damaged cells, to make room for new cells. Not a problem, except you had toast for breakfast. You make antibodies to wheat. It attacks your thyroid if that's the weak link in your chain. You have a sandwich for lunch. You make antibodies to wheat. It attacks your thyroid if that's the weak link in your chain, or it attacks the myelin in your brain if that's the weak link in your chain, and you get MS from that. Or it attacks your joints and you get arthritis if that's the weak link in your chain. And we day after day after day after day after day, making antibodies and antibodies and antibodies and antibodies. And if the molecular mimicry mechanism, that's the term for it, molecular mimicry, if the molecular mimicry mechanism, your weak link in the chain is your brain, the cerebellum in your brain, the antibodies to wheat attack your cerebellum. And you keep killing off your cerebellum little by little by little by little. And the result is your cerebellum shrinks because you're killing off more cells than you're making. And when your cerebellum shrinks, that's the area of the brain that controls muscle movement. How many elders do you know that can dance up and down the stairs, that they've got grace and they don't have to hold the railing walking down the stairs? The vast majority of us, in my practice, I did 316 consecutive patients. Everybody got the same blood test. Everybody did. And it was a very comprehensive, between 2 years old and 90 years old, very comprehensive blood test. And we looked at wheat antibodies and dairy and soy and corn and egg. And then I looked at different tissues in the brain. What we found was that if you had elevated antibodies to wheat, and 68% of everyone that came into our practice had elevated antibodies to wheat. 68%, that's almost 7 out of 10 people. Didn't matter what their presenting complaints were. If they had elevated antibodies to wheat, 26% of them had elevated antibodies to cerebellum, killing off their cerebellum.
Oh, wow.
22% of them had elevated antibodies to myelin, killing off myelin.
So that can all be tested. The antibodies to which tissue?
Exactly. It's called the neural zoomer. The
neural zoomer. This is very exciting. I had never heard of this.
Yeah, it really is, because you can identify if your brain's on fire right now.
Wow.
And that motivates you to find out, what do I do to fix this? But you'll never look, what do I do to fix it? Or it'll never be important to you unless you see that you got a problem right now. Your armed forces are out there attacking your brain right now.
So Dr. Tom, I have like a little tiny bit of thyroid antibodies, not very high, but hanging around. So what tests could I do potentially to see like which thing is causing that? Yeah,
that's a really good question, because that's everybody's question is, what test do I do? What's the one test? What's the one test? I want it now. I want it now. I picked you right off, but it's so common for your generation wanting to know, but actually there's an answer for you.
Good. I would have been very sad.
That is that the laboratory, they've just launched a couple more Zoomers. And so there's 6 Zoomers right now.
Okay.
That you can get at half price. They're all at, it's remarkable. It's about $1,000 or so for
What is this lab, first of all?
It's called Vibrant Wellness.
Okay.
And if you go to my website, thedr.com, you'll see it all there. There's the wheat zoomer, the neural zoomer, the lectin zoomer, the dairy zoomer, the corn zoomer, and the peanut zoomer. So when you do those 6 together, you also identify if there's intestinal permeability, the leaky gut. And when you do those tests together, it's one blood draw, just one blood draw for all of it. The result is you've got a comprehensive picture of much of what might be triggering whatever it is that your body is attacking right now.
Okay, so these are mainly food things. And
mainly the food ones, that's where you start. If you find out that you have intestinal permeability, then you have to look for chemical sensitivity.
Okay.
We do a huge health history on somebody. I need to know, what jobs have you had in your life? I mean, if you were a manicurist for a while, you're toxic with these chemicals. You were working on them hours a day, every day, breathing that stuff in. And, you know, by the time, when you put nail polish on, it's in your bloodstream within 4 or 5 minutes.
Wow.
And that's very toxic stuff, unless you get the safer nail polishes.
Which I'll interject that. I know that there are safer nail polishes, but I don't know if there's such a thing as a safe nail polish remover that I've seen. So I still think it's a risky business.
It is. But I'm not going to deal with don't do nail polish. I'm not going to go there because I don't want to isolate people or, you know, scare them off. But you guys just have to learn, once again, paradigm shift, that the way we thought about our health 10 years ago, what new vitamin can I take that'll help me feel great? You can't do that anymore. That's not going to get the job done. It's an important component, but it's not going to get the job done. We really have to be looking at the toxins and how do I make my body efficient at detoxing?
So you like to start, it sounds like, with some of these food tests, and then if you think there's leaky gut, maybe you move on to chemical tests?
And well, with the health history. On the
history. Okay, gotcha.
The health history is really important.
Okay.
And we do a health history that will take you 2 days. And I'm not exaggerating, because I want to know, what was your mother's health during pregnancy with you? What was she on any meds? What was the delivery like? Natural or C-section? Were you breastfed? When did they start breastfeeding? When did they stop? When was your first ear infections? And we need, how many prescriptions for antibiotics have you had? We need to know all of that stuff because it sets you up for the dysfunction that you have for years that continues to get worse until it becomes a dis-ease. And now you're going to see a doctor because you don't feel good. And eventually it becomes a disease. So we have to know, we have to go all the way back to figure out what the heck happened to this person. See, when you go to see a doctor and you think you have a thyroid problem, for example, or you've been diagnosed with diabetes, or you have recurrent miscarriages, it's like you've fallen over a waterfall and you've crashed into the pond below. You swim up to the surface and oh God, thank God I'm alive, right? And you're trying to stay afloat in the pond of recurrent miscarriages, or in the pond of diabetes, or the pond of migraines, or the pond of seizures. It doesn't matter what the symptoms are. You're trying to stay afloat in the pond. But it's really hard to stay afloat because the water's so turbulent. The waterfall keeps falling into the pond. You're living the lifestyle that caused the problems. You're still living the same lifestyle. The waterfall's falling into the pond, and the water's really turbulent. So everybody wants the life jacket. What's the life jacket that's going to make me feel great right now? And you always, of course, it's important to stay afloat. You can't drown in there. So you want the life jacket that's the least side effects possible. So you try the natural stuff first. If it doesn't work, you take the drugs. Don't be silly. You take the drugs. But you don't stay in the pond. You don't keep living the lifestyle that's caused the problem.
Right.
You swim over to the side of the pond, get out of the water, walk up the hill, walk back up river, and find out what fell in the river that carried me downstream, and I fell over into the pond of recurrent miscarriages. Yeah. What is it? That's functional medicine. And
exactly.
Everyone needs to be their own functional medicine advocate. Everyone does, because this world, 59% reduction in sperm count in 37 years. If you guys don't wake up, you are going to be unable to reproduce, period. Who conquered the Romans? No one. No one. That's right. Nobody knows because no one.
Caught me off guard. Were they with the lead in the pipes? Was that
exactly right?
Okay.
Exactly right. In the 400 ADs, they put water pipes through Rome, and they were all lead pipes.
Crazy.
And they put lead in the wine to preserve the wine.
Oh, wow.
They got lead poisoning. And what does lead poisoning do? It makes you infertile. It reduces sperm count. And that's what's happening to us now from all of the toxic chemicals we're being exposed to. When you guys see this, it's so overwhelming. Bridget, what's the subtitle on the book? upper right corner.
Just 1 hour a week to the best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had.
That's the only way that you guys can get this, is if you allocate an hour a week or an hour a couple of times a week, you know. But if you think that you're going to read this and you're going to get the answer and it's going to be great and I'm going to be healthy, it's not going to work. It just can't work.
I like that subtitle. I was curious about it because I was like, are there some brain exercises I missed or what? But I love this concept, and this is kind of what I do too. It's like, you got to start with education. Education makes it all make sense. And then it, to me, inspires you to action. How could you read about benzene? How could you hear that tip about pumping gas and then still sit there and breathe the gas?
Right, you know? That's right.
It stimulates you into action. So I love that.
That's the goal, you know, and we just launched our Brain Masterclass today, actually just today. It's launching now, and I hadn't seen it. And I looked at it yesterday. It's like, holy cow, look at this, is so fabulous that there's over 150 videos of me.
Oh, wow.
Talking about different concepts. And you just go at your own pace. You know, there's 5 different pillars in there, and you just start with the gut and the brain connection, or you start with whatever one you want, and you just watch, you go, wow, I never thought of that. And then here's an exercise you can do, or here's a test that you can do for it if this seems to relate to you. And you know, it's great. And so we're doing it right now at an 80% discount because I want feedback. I want to know, how successful am I being in changing your paradigm? So as you go through it, if you're willing to go through this and just give me honest feedback, and you don't butter me up, you know, just say, hey, I didn't get this concept, or I really got it, and this has helped so much. You know, just help us figure it out. That right now it's available for a while. It's at $197 for a while. It's really great. But this is like the most sophisticated brain function education program I've ever seen. Ever.
That's awesome. And if you go to the dr.com, you'll find it. Right. You'll be able to find that. Okay. Right. Awesome. Well, I know I've taken up a lot of your time today, and I don't know if you have another interview after me, so I'll start wrapping it up to say I really enjoyed the book. A lot of detailed information. You know, my audience, they already are a little bit of smarty pants. They know things. They don't know. You don't know everything in this book. I learned a lot in this book. It's a great book. And I really appreciate your enthusiasm as well. You know, the passion you bring to the subject. It's great. I'm sure this is available on Amazon. Where else? Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. There's like BAM Books or Books A Million, or I don't know, all those places. But if you go to thedoctor.com/books, then the links are there to go to the different outlets like Amazon, all that. But then you also can download, there's 12 different handouts for you that you get for free. Just by going through the site. So we give you these handouts to help you with the book. And I'm going to ask something of you.
Sure.
Of all of you. You know, the only way we're going to save this planet, I mean, it's not good right now. And I never thought I'd be this kind of a doomsday kind of guy, but when you read the science, it's really not good. There's no technology known that's going to save the planet right now. There's no technology. And it was a quote attributed to Einstein that says, the problems we've created today cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created the problem. So we have to up our game. But all of us as adults, we're already locked into a rigidity of how we think or how we operate. We can change a little, but not that much. It's really the next generation, the kids. That's why women detoxing their breasts before they get pregnant and getting educated about all this stuff and protecting your family, getting air filtration systems in your house, chlorine filters on your shower, you know, learning all this stuff over the next 6 months to a year is so critically important to save the planet. I mean, bottom line, that's why I'm here. That's my goal in life. And this will keep me alive for a long time to do this, right? So my ask is, if you get this book and you think, well, this is cool, I learned something out of this, please take a couple of extra steps. First, write a review on Amazon of what your experience is, and be straight about it. You know, don't butter me up, just be straight about it. And then second, order another book and send it to someone you know. Because if this book can reach the New York Times bestseller list, that means tens of thousands of more people will see it on the shelf and they'll say, oh, it's an NYT bestseller. All right, I'll check that out.
True.
It will increase the magnetic attraction of the book. And
Yeah.
I do believe that this is an important component. When you understand the principles that you get here about going upstream and on functional medicine, and you start implementing this in your life on a more comprehensive basis, when you recognize, I want it now, but it can't happen that way, and you take the time at your threshold to just implement little things. For example, I'll just give you one example. I can't help myself. Stop using plastic wrap on your food. The phthalates in the plastic wrap leach into the food. And then you get phthalate toxicity, which is an endocrine disruptor that binds on your estrogen and testosterone receptor sites.
Yes.
Stop using plastic containers to store your food. Put them out in the garage for your husband to store nails with them, or your kids to store their crayons in. But get glass containers to store your food, leftovers in the refrigerator. All these little things that you start implementing one piece at a time, 1 hour a week. You know, it's going to take you an hour to, oh yeah, the glass containers. You're going to look online, you're going to find your glass container. Yeah, okay, I'll get those. You're done for the week. And every week you do one thing like that, then it's not overwhelming, you know, and you feel empowered. And every time you use these glass containers, you say, oh, good, we aren't using that plastic anymore. So if you would, if this book resonates for you, please order an extra copy and give it to someone that you know would benefit from it.
I love it. Yeah, we have to mainstream this. We need to globalize this. You know, I'm not you can tell by looking, I'm not a loud person who maybe like, I don't know, you're Italian, maybe you naturally, but you know, I don't like being, you know, a revolutionary or whatever. Yeah. I didn't sign up for that. But like you, I'm just a person who loves to learn. I've always cared about the planet. These are just instincts, and we have to talk about this. We absolutely, it's our what's the word? It's our calling.
Exactly right.
So yeah, I'm happy to support you. We'll get this in our newsletter. I'll write my review because I have not yet.
Thank you.
And we'll spread the word. Yeah, I'd love to have you back anytime, Dr. Tom, and
it would be a pleasure.
We'll keep in touch about your work.
Great.
And we'll have all the links below this video as well.